What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake NBA DFS Early Look. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I, of course, am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on all those social media platforms listed above or directly at WiseTake.com if you're looking to take your DFS game to the next level. Trying something a little bit different today. Trying to do the shows with more relevant information. Still maintaining the early look. Obviously, we do our pre-lock live stream 45 minutes prior to lock at WiseTake.com for subscribers. We'll continue to do that, but I wanted to try to enhance our early look show. So trying out a new streaming software, already seeing a couple things that I got to get worked out in the stream software itself, but wanted to test it out, man, a little different. Wanted to see how it ran on the new system, so I figured we'd go back to doing this live and just doing it the next day, mid-afternoon. You do things the night before. I try to get it out as early as I can for everybody. The problem is, a lot of the time, because of the news, a lot of the stuff is relevant, or we end up not touching up on some of the more important things out there. So, again, trying to do a little something different, and appreciate it if we get some feedback. Hopefully, we get this live chat going. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these live. I've been pre-recording them for a little bit, but we got MLB starting up soon, so we'll be looking to do more and more of this stuff live if we can. That being said, as always, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to miss out on any of the free content we put out, and do me a favor and share the show, man. The share goes a long way. Sharing really helps us out. Let's continue to do what we do, which is doing dirties on the YouTube and Podbean and wherever else we are. All right, we're gonna jump into FanDuel and DraftKings as always. Kind of go game by game as the way the slate stands now. We're going to start off with Sacramento and Cleveland. First thing we want to look for is the injury front. We know Marvin Bagley's still out. Looks like Kevin Love is questionable. At this point, I'm not even sure why he's even trying to play. Other than, I don't know, maybe for his sake, trying to show teams that he's still capable of playing. Doesn't make a whole sense to me at this point. We'll take a look at his tag real quick. He was ruled out Sunday. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'd be surprised if he did play. And even if he does, we're talking very limited minutes. What's been disappointing for Cleveland is Larry Nance. We even had a situation with JaVale McGee out, and I thought that would have helped Nance. Now, they do have younger guys on the bench that they decided to give some time to, but Nance is still playing big minutes. He's just not really producing at that type of level. Either way, whenever he's affordable, I think we can at least consider him. He's 6'1" on DraftKings, a little bit of a different situation there. That being said, let's go on to the rest of the game. I think Jared Allen 7'6" on DraftKings seems a little steep, but it is Sacramento, a team that has struggled against centers. I think he'll be more popular on FanDuel at 6'7". Not exactly a hot take there. Cleveland's getting paced up pretty good in this game, and they've actually been playing well enough. The problem is they've been playing some bad teams for the most part. Now, I think they did They beat Toronto. Boston was like the surprise one, right? That they played well. But Boston and Toronto have not been as good this year. They just haven't. They haven't been as dominant. As far as the Bagley absence, Tyrese Halliburton is only 5'5", and he's the one that benefited, at least in terms of starting. They say he's on a minutes limit. In their last game, he only played 26 minutes, which was more, what I expected. But he's been on a minutes limit for a minute, and they're still playing him 32 and 33 minutes. So I'm not that concerned about it. I'm more concerned about his level of play at the moment than anything else. But him and Buddy Hield, we can consider. Let's take a look and see. I doubt it looks like based off the price, I doubt Bielitsa is getting much action now. No. It's been good for Harrison Barnes, and it's going to continue to be in this matchup, right? He's playing big minutes, getting a lot more time at the 4. As we always say, when a player goes from the 3 or a wing position to the 4 down low, you're getting shots that are closer to the basket, getting more opportunities for rebounds, hypothetically, right? Last but not least, De'Aaron Fox obviously is a fine play. Cleveland not known for their defense. Darius Garland's been playing really well. Maybe I'm discrediting him a little bit because he didn't play so well for me yesterday against Toronto. But in general, he has played pretty well. Appreciate those of you watching us live. Drop something in the chat. Let me know you're here. Say what's up. I can see that some of you are here, but I got some features on this new program I want to try out. So drop a little something in the chat. All right, we'll move on to the next game. OKC in Minnesota. But FanDuel refuses to move Ricky Rubio's price, which is kind of interesting. SGA, what's the status for SGA? So he missed yesterday's game due to shoulder soreness, right? So I would expect he comes back because they've been kind of just giving him a day off anyway every now and again. So I would expect he comes back. If he does come back, I think it's a really good spot for him against Minnesota, matchup-wise, pace-wise, everything like that. Minnesota, however, it's kind of the opposite situation, at least to me. OKC plays at a slow pace. They do play some defense, and I don't love playing players against OKC. Anthony Edwards at 7'7" and 7'2" is fine, but I think the only one that I would feel comfortable with in terms of spending money on is Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, I am cool with Rubio on FanDuel because, again, he's 5'5", so I think he is still relatively cheap, right? But the OKC side outside of Towns is probably the side that I feel a little bit more comfortable with. The forward positions. Darius Bazley is still out. We saw Roby get 34 minutes. However, that was with Horford out also. If SGA is out, Theo Maledon, I think could be a little bit more reliable. Keep in mind, Horford is back, though. Let's just keep that in mind for a second. Horford is back. Moses Brown is only 4,300. I know. With Horford there, obviously, there's some concern. But you can see he's still getting decent minutes, even with Horford playing. Right? This dude looks good, man. From a fantasy perspective, especially, he looks pretty good. But more than anything, I think right now, the main situation that we're looking for, even Dort is 4,300. If SGA is out, we can look at Dort again also. But the main situation, I think, is coming up in the next game, or one of the main situations, at least in terms of concentrated ownership, will be in the Charlotte-San Antonio game, right? So the San Antonio side, not as much, obviously. But the Charlotte side should be pretty popular on both sides, even with slightly increased pricing on DraftKings. So we know LaMelo Ball fractured his wrist. We expect him to be out for the rest of the season. Shame. He was probably going to be Rookie of the Year, I think. However, with him being out, it should be a pretty big usage bump for everyone else. I think that Terry Rozier, who is currently questionable, if he does play, he's 5'9" on FanDuel, 6'6" on DraftKings. We should expect him to get heavy minutes and expect him to take a lot of shots. Looks like he is probable today. Gordon Hayward, right? Gordon Hayward, we're here. He should see increased usage, play big minutes. 7K on FanDuel, 7.4 on DraftKings. Now, we do have the Milwaukee situation to talk about as well, with Giannis currently being doubtful. But the Charlotte side you should also see pretty heavily owned in tournaments, but also like especially cash games, especially on FanDuel. Hayward, PJ Washington, Terry Rozier, and of course, a player that FanDuel kind of just left down there, Devontae Graham. Right? I'd be surprised if we didn't see him into the starting lineup. Now, they've been cautious with his minutes, but he has been back for a little while. He's played 6 games already, right? So he's played 6 games, and he hasn't played more than 22 minutes. I would think that with LaMelo Ball out, they're going to want to change that. Put him back in the starting lineup, see what he can do. Right? We know last year without LaMelo Ball, he had tremendous upside. Like, there were times where his price was raised up, crazy, but when LaMelo Ball came this year, it could be a sophomore slump thing, but his performance just definitely dipped. But at 4,300, expect him to be very popular. How much is he on DraftKings? 4.8, still really cheap. Assuming that he's getting the minutes he's getting. And San Antonio's defense has been horrendous. Their pace has been slow, but the defense has been horrendous. So yeah, Rozier, Devontae Graham, Hayward, and of course PJ Washington, because it does look like Cody Zeller's out again. So we should see Washington play some 5. I think you can consider, if you wanted to, you can consider Biyombo if you wanna, if you're desperate for that value. But obviously, I think PJ is probably a little more suitable. But expect Charlotte to be popular, rightfully so. That's like, especially in cash games, right? Toronto-Houston, I think, is an interesting tournament game because I wonder how much of the ownership is going to be dictated by these injuries. Meaning, if Charlotte and the and the Milwaukee players take up all the ownership we expect, do we see a game like Toronto-Houston, which I know like Houston's been getting blown out every day, but you know what it feels like? Toronto has been too. Toronto just has not been good. So you feel like this game could actually be close, and if it does, we could be looking at a very fast-paced game with teams who play very little defense. So it's interesting to see how the ownership works out today. But obviously, Lowry, Christian Wood on FanDuel is 8,100, but he's power forward. That's always beneficial. He looked like he was on pace to do the ultimate dirty against Detroit. Didn't, but got 36 minutes against OKC yesterday. Now, we are going to want to see who actually plays today. He is coming back from injury. There's only his 3rd game, and he missed a lot of time, so I wouldn't be surprised if he missed on a back-to-back or if he was somewhat limited on a back-to-back. I haven't heard anything, just throwing it out there. Oladipo, we got to check what's up with him. He's been resting on back-to-backs, right? So we'll have to keep an eye out if any of the news comes through. Yeah, Oladipo will be held out of Monday's game. So Oladipo's not playing. So big boost for John Wall and Christian Wood if they're playing without any restriction or limitation. Kevin Porter Jr. we can't really go to with all these guys healthy. Maybe Oladipo out helps him, but we really need him playing that point guard role. So John Wall is kind of the factor stopping him. But again, just generally speaking, I think in tournaments this game's kind of interesting, depending on how it shakes out. We'll get to the second half of the chalk in the Bucks. So Giannis Antetokounmpo, for anyone who don't know, is currently doubtful. Doubtful for Monday. Giannis, Big D. That's a big matchup boost, in my opinion, for Domantas Sabonis. Right? I think it's a big boost for Mr. Domantas Sabonis without Giannis down low. Giannis is the only reason that centers should do really well. Big should do really well against Milwaukee. The only reason that they haven't all the time, and they have at times, but the reason they haven't all the time is because Giannis is really good and really big and really athletic. With him out of the game, you got Brook Lopez down there all by himself. That's tough. It's real tough. So Sabonis definitely gets a matchup boost here. Chris Middleton should be ridiculously chalky. I know at WiseTake we have him projected pretty high when you incorporate the usage increase without Giannis. And the Pacers have not been as good defensively. They really haven't. They just haven't. So I do like Giannis. Drew Holiday. We should see him with some increased usage as well. And he's already been playing better as of late. So expect him to take more shots and everything else. I think DiVincenzo will probably be the lowest owned of the bunch because I think people immediately go to Middleton Holiday. On FanDuel, you got the Rozier Graham thing going, so I could see DiVincenzo getting left out. He's 6-1 on DraftKings, so I think that'll defer people. And again, the way the positions work on FanDuel, I think will defer people over there. Miles Turner's fine, but I just never like playing that dude. Karis LeVert on the Pacers, I'm good to go with. I wouldn't mind taking some shots. I think T.J. McConnell's kind of interesting too. Keep in mind also, this is the ultimate revenge spot for Brogdon. Didn't do so well last time you played him, but this one is in Milwaukee, right? So a lot of interesting plays here, but I think one of the more interesting situations, rotationally, we used to see this happen with Ersan Ilyasova all the time, but Bobby Portis is 4-1 on DraftKings, and he's like 3-7 on FanDuel. I've checked a couple of different places, and a lot of places are putting him somewhere in a starting lineup. So I think people are assuming that maybe he'll start for Giannis, because in the past that's kind of been the trend, or at least the impression. So we could see that. However, keep in mind they did recently get PJ Tucker, who I think this game on the 20th, I think he did play, right? 13 minutes. So maybe he gets eased in because prior to that he hadn't played since the 3rd, but he could be the reason that we don't see as many minutes for Portis as we anticipate. Either way, Portis is, even if Giannis was in, Portis just seems kind of cheap to not take chance on. Now you factor in, you take into a consideration that Giannis is out. Kind of hard not to play him, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of the ownership should be pretty concentrated today. It's not a huge slate, but 8 games is enough to where there's options. That's what makes me interested in that Toronto-Houston game. Because we're going to see so much ownership in Charlotte, so much ownership in Milwaukee. We'll move it over to Boston and Memphis. This is another one you can throw into that hat. Another certainly stackable game. Kemba Walker, we know, is out. Interested in Tatum. I'm interested in Jaylen Brown. For obvious reasons, I think a lot of people will be. They're probably next on that tier in terms of usage increases and all that. But Marcus Smart, man, I think his ownership's going to be low. He's been starting to play a little bit better. His minutes are up over 30. I think he'll play a lot of point guard today. So he's kind of interesting, right? Again, competing with that Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier ownership. He could be interesting. I'd tell you who's been a stud. Mr. Robert Williams has been a stud, right? When he's played minutes, he showed tremendous upside. Tremendous. They've been waiting for this, man. They've been waiting for this with the Time Lord. He looks good. The Boston side a little tougher to figure out. Jonas Valanciunas is fine. John Morant has been really inconsistent this year. Last year he was pretty fucking solid every game. This year he's been really inconsistent. I actually think Dylan Brooks, another shooting guard, is kind of interesting. He's a shooter, right? That's the problem. It's really all he does is shoot. But that has been the way in the past to put up big numbers against Boston, is if you could shoot and take jump shots, because that's what Boston will give you. So he's certainly interesting. Not to mention the slew of other value players they offer. We got 2 games. Shit. Utah and Chicago. Chicago has been surprising people. Surprising me, anyway. Zach LaVine's really cheap, man. 8,400 for Zach LaVine against Utah. Very cheap. Coming off a shitty game, I get it. Still cheap. 84 on DraftKings, too. Tempting. And again, his ownership's going to be low, I promise you, because of the Graham Rozier situation and all the other shooting guards we've talked about so far. Rudy Gobert, though, right? Sure, Donovan Mitchell, sure. But Rudy Gobert, though. 8,300, he could completely just destroy these guys. Now, if he's out, that could open up some pretty serious value at center. We'd be looking at Derek Favors in a nut matchup. Any center against Chicago is worth considering. So even at 8,300 on FanDuel and 8,400 on DraftKings, if he's in, I'm at least interested. Now, could the game stay close enough? Utah's been really good. Chicago has been playing better, but they're still not, obviously there yet. But if the game stays close, you got to think a center from Utah smashes. Mike Conley could be kind of sneaky when you think about it. Bojan Bogdanovic, man. Similar to Bertans this year. Showing upside every once in a while, but for the most part, just kind of disappointing you. But we know what happens when he gets hot. Yes, we do. I will move it over to the last game of the day. I see a bunch of you people watching. I'm waiting to test this new chat feature, but I'm not getting, I'm not getting nothing. So if you're watching us live, just say something in the chat. Say, what up, CK? I just want to test a little something, man. I just told you I'm using new software. Help me out. Help me out. Atlanta and the Clippers. Last game, late night hammer all by itself. So obviously most people are going to be concerned about Atlanta keeping this game close. Trae Young's another one of these young, high upside players that really hasn't been showing his upside as often as we'd like. His price has come down 8.8 and 8.7. It's not something we saw a lot last year, but it's something that he's kind of earned himself this year. No Pat Bev is good. If Atlanta does hang close in this game, it's hard to imagine that Trae Young is not a big part of that. Right? So, that's what I'll say. And I appreciate you guys hitting the likes, man. I'm seeing the likes growing, which I do appreciate. The flip side of this, now it's not just Trae Young. I think Clint Capella is actually the best play, price considering and everything. If we think he gets minutes, he's battling plantar fasciitis, so they've been limited with his minutes at times. But even against Toronto, even against Sacramento, he's showing that upside. And this is a matchup where he certainly could, right? That's one of the weaknesses for the Clippers is bigs. So I do like Clint Capella. But if it's not him, I mean, I'll say this. DeAndre Hunter's expected back today, so that's going to jam shit up for the wings, for the forwards. John Collins' role should be fine. I really only like to play him. He's coming off of a smash burger against the Lakers, but I really only like to play him when Capella's like out. Did Capella play that game against the Lakers? Let me check. It wasn't on a slate. I know that. He did. He got 22 minutes, and Collins got the majority minutes in smash. So those two guys, right? But I think Trae Young's going to have to play a role too if this game truly stays close. As far as the Clippers, they are getting paced up. Paul George's price has come up a little bit. I think that we'll see the Clippers at low ownership, partially because of positions. Right? I think that, again, because Paul George is at a position where he's competing against the Graham, the Roziers, and the other shooting guards that we had mentioned, I think we'll see his ownership kind of be low. Right? And I think a lot of people may write this game off thinking like, nah, man, there's no way it stays close. So for tournaments, I do like the game. In cash games, there's probably not a ton for me here. Unless there's some kind of late breaking news, which I'll update in my article, which we'll talk about on the Wise stream if it happens then. But yeah, I think that the Clippers side could be very interesting to turn. This game in general, I think this one, the Toronto, Houston, Boston, Memphis, this one are probably my favorites for tournament pivots. I like a few plays from the Utah side. We'll mainly go Bear. But again, I think the core tonight is going to be some sort of combination of Charlotte and Milwaukee players, assuming that news stays true. And we know Charlotte will, but assuming Giannis does not play. He's doubtful. He's not officially ruled out. We've seen shit like that happen this year. But we'll see. Projections are updated at WiseTake.com. I'll be updating them throughout the day as I always do, all the way up until lock. Don't forget to check out. I'll be starting my article right after this show. I like to do the show first. Normally I do it the night before. Again, trying something different by doing it live the next day with a little bit more relevant information at least. Give me some feedback in the comments and the chat, all that good shit. Appreciate it. But definitely need the feedback. In order for me to cater the content to y'all, I need to hear from y'all. But I'll start my article right after this, my core plays article, and then make sure you check us out on the Wise stream. 45 minutes prior to lock, which today I think is 6:45, right? Lock at 7:30, so we'll be there. Hit the like button on your way out, subscribe, share the show as much as you can. I appreciate y'all. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always,